Paris this weekend to protest the government in Iran. Now remember, Iran says there is no opposition. No one would go against it. Cue the video in France. Expatriates from Iran now joining former and current leaders from around the world in a quest for democratic change. This after the latest round of talks on Iran's controversial nuclear program ended without resolution. Amy Kellogg streaming live now from Paris. Amy?
Harris, in fact, there are lots of developments vis-a-vis the situation in Iran. First of all, those economic sanctions, the oil embargo on the part of Europe goes into effect in about a week. And I spoke to an Iranian economic expert today who really fears there will be a full-blown economic crisis in that country soon, possibly involving shortages of essential goods and price rises of about 50% on certain things. Now, the opposition, meanwhile, in Iran has been crushed by the regime. This group, meeting outside of Paris today, is calling for free and fair elections, a gender-equal Iran, and a separation between religion and state. The group, the MEK, as it's called, is also fighting to get off the U.S. list of terrorist countries. It was put there, and it's up for review in that regard very soon. It was put on that list after it fought Americans and the Shah in the 70s, but quickly soured on the Islamic Revolution and has been fighting that regime for decades ever since. Despite the fact that it's calling for democratic change in Iran, its critics say that it is not a democratic organization, but it has enlisted some very high-profile supporters who say that the U.S. and the world have to do much more to challenge the regime in Iran.
This regime is much worse than Mubarak and Gaddafi combined. They've killed more people, they've slaughtered more people, they've harmed more Americans, they sponsor terrorism at a level that is totally unacceptable. So if the United States of America was for regime change in Egypt, for regime change in Libya, for regime change in Syria, why aren't we for regime change in Iran that's far worse than all three combined?
Harris, there were some pretty horrific stories from people in that auditorium today about what their families had experienced in Iran, and then certainly a range of opinions about what should be done. Some say no military intervention, some say that's the only way, and of course there are others who weren't necessarily in this group today who think that diplomacy still needs one more chance. Harris, back to you.
This is fascinating to get this kind of look behind the curtain, if you will, from people outside of Iran on what's going on in that country. Amy Kellogg, thank you very much. Well,